On a cool September morning in 1982, Chicago awoke to a tragedy that would change the way the world trusted its medicine. The Chicago Tylenol murders began quietly, almost invisibly, with ordinary people reaching for relief from a headache or a cold. Within hours, several residents collapsed without warning, their symptoms sudden and catastrophic. Emergency rooms filled with confusion as doctors struggled to connect the dots between otherwise healthy patients who had taken the same over-the-counter painkiller. The city's rhythm, its traffic, its chatter, its daily routines, slowed under the weight of fear. News of the first deaths spread through neighborhoods and workplaces, whispered in grocery aisles and over payphones. The victims had done nothing unusual, nothing reckless. They had simply taken capsules from bottles purchased off store shelves. The realization that something so familiar could turn lethal shook the public's sense of safety. Police and health officials converged on hospitals, pharmacies, and distribution centers, trying to trace the source. The air carried the metallic scent of early autumn rain, mixing with the sterile odor of disinfectant as investigators opened medicine cabinets and examined packaging. It was an invisible crime, one that left no fingerprints, no witnesses, and no clear motive. By nightfall, Chicago was on edge, its skyline lit but uneasy, as the first warnings went out urging residents to stop taking Tylenol immediately. The immediate aftermath was chaos tempered by procedure. Ambulances idled outside suburban homes, their red lights reflecting off wet pavement as paramedics moved quickly but carefully. Inside emergency rooms, doctors worked under fluorescent glare, noting identical symptoms: sudden collapse, respiratory failure, cyanosis. The connection to Tylenol emerged only after a nurse noticed the common brand among victims' belongings. Police sealed off hospital storage areas and began collecting every bottle in sight, labeling them with evidence tags and sealing them in plastic. Detectives fanned out to pharmacies, grocery stores, and corner drug counters, their radios crackling with updates. The weather turned brisk, and officers wore heavy jackets as they loaded boxes of recalled medicine into vans. At the city's medical examiner's office, technicians in white coats prepared toxicology tests, carefully measuring samples under fume hoods. The results came back with chilling clarity. The capsules contained potassium cyanide, a fast-acting poison that left virtually no chance of survival. News crews gathered outside, their cameras fogging in the cold air, while reporters relayed the findings to a stunned nation. Inside homes across Chicago, families emptied medicine cabinets into trash bags, unsure which bottles were safe. Pharmacies posted handwritten signs reading, "No Tylenol sold here." The sense of ordinary trust between consumer and product fractured overnight. The investigation that followed was massive, methodical, and unlike anything local law enforcement had faced. Detectives from multiple jurisdictions joined federal agents, forming task forces that met in crowded conference rooms lined with maps and evidence boards. Each bottle recovered was logged, photographed, and sent to a central lab for analysis. Chain of custody forms multiplied, and clerks worked late into the night under buzzing fluorescent lights. Investigators interviewed store managers, warehouse employees, and delivery drivers, tracing distribution routes across the region. They examined packaging machinery, conveyor belts, and storage facilities, searching for any sign of tampering. Forensic chemists compared residue samples, noting the precision of the contamination. It appeared deliberate, targeted, and executed outside the manufacturing process. Meanwhile, the community responded with both fear and solidarity. Candlelight vigils were held for the victims, and local churches opened their doors for counseling. Parents walked their children to school, scanning store shelves for missing products. The media coverage was relentless, with nightly broadcasts showing images of investigators in protective gloves handling small brown bottles. The city's phone lines jammed as residents called hotlines to report suspicious medicine. Each tip was logged, cross-referenced, and followed up, even as the leads grew thin. The investigation stretched from Chicago's suburbs to distant states, testing the limits of forensic science in an era before digital tracking. As weeks turned into months, the case deepened into a national mystery. Investigators pursued multiple theories, product tampering by a disgruntled employee, extortion attempts, random acts of terror. A letter demanding money surfaced, but its author was never proven to be the killer. The FBI joined the effort, bringing behavioral profilers and advanced laboratory support. They reconstructed possible scenarios: someone entering stores, replacing capsules one bottle at a time, blending into the anonymity of shoppers. Surveillance footage was scarce, and security systems were primitive by modern standards. Detectives followed hundreds of leads, interviewing anyone with access to distribution channels or chemical supplies. Each promising clue dissolved under scrutiny. The manufacturer cooperated fully, halting production and recalling millions of bottles nationwide. In response, the company introduced tamper-evident packaging, foil seals, plastic wraps, and redesigned caps that would become industry standards. The media, initially frantic, shifted toward analysis, exploring how one act of sabotage could ripple through an entire nation's psyche. Public trust in consumer safety had been violated, and lawmakers moved quickly to draft new regulations. Yet, despite the unprecedented investigation, no one was ever charged with the murders. The case remained open, its files thick with reports, photographs, and unanswered questions. Decades later, the impact of the Chicago Tylenol murders still lingers in everyday life. Every sealed bottle, every safety warning, every tamper-proof label traces its origin to that week in 1982. The victims' families carried on quietly, their grief woven into the city's collective memory. Investigators who worked the case have described it as both haunting and instructive, a reminder of how vulnerability can hide in plain sight. Advances in forensic science have since transformed how evidence is tracked and analyzed, but the identity of the person who laced those capsules remains unknown. The case stands as a turning point in public health and criminal investigation, demonstrating how a single act of contamination can reshape national policy. In Chicago, anniversaries of the tragedy still draw moments of reflection, not only for those who lost loved ones, but for anyone who remembers the sudden fear that ordinary medicine could kill. The story endures in classrooms, safety briefings, and investigative training sessions, where it is studied as both a cautionary tale and a benchmark for crisis response. The bottles themselves, now sealed behind glass in evidence storage, are silent artifacts of a crime that changed consumer trust forever. And though the trail has long gone cold, the question of who did it and why remains suspended in history, a mystery that continues to echo through every sealed cap and safety seal we twist open today.